Hey guys, what's up? Sermo11 here, and today I'm going to be talking about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I really didn't want to do this right now because I wanted to do the review first. I wanted to discuss some of the issues that people had with the game, but this is happening right now, so I need to hop on this and just kind of talk about it. So basically, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are getting a free update on the Nintendo Switch 2, which just released today, last night technically. The console just came out. They're going to have updates for some games. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is an update that's being given out for free, obviously because a lot of people had issues, a lot of people were vocal about those issues, and I assume Nintendo or Game Freak or whoever's in charge of setting the prices and everything, they were just like, it's probably best to release this for free. If we released it for paid or anything like that, things would probably get worse. So, footage for the game has been released. This came out like a few days ago, and people were comparing it to Scarlet and Violet on the Nintendo Switch 1. Obviously, it looks better, it runs better, and all that. My whole thing, and this was a topic that I wanted to do, I just never got to it, so this isn't something that just suddenly came to me. I had this idea that some people had said, like, oh, I'm going to wait until the Nintendo Switch 2 to finish Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, or to pick up Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So that kind of led me to think, like, oh, these people, they're going to play the game on the Nintendo Switch 2, this game that people have been, like, so hateful towards, so hateful on. Just some of the things that people have said are kind of crazy. And now I feel like those people, I feel like they're going to suddenly be like, wow, this game runs better, and I suddenly love it. I suddenly love this game I swore about, said all these bad things about. That's just how things are. This is probably going to get into the issues that people have with the game and some of the things they've said. I can't really avoid that. I wanted that to have its own video, but I guess it'll be mixed in here. So that's just kind of how things are. So basically, let's just kind of get into it. So Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, people think the games don't look good. Like, graphically, they think they don't look good, I guess, to the standards of other modern games. And also people are saying, because Pokemon is the biggest media franchise in the world, they make a lot of money, people think that the game should look a lot better. Now, I guess that's not necessarily wrong to think, I also, not to that extent. I don't really like how Scarlet and Violet look. I think Sword and Shield and Legends Arceus look better, but I think that's more of an art style issue, not necessarily just like, oh, this game looks bad. I don't want to say I don't care. I'm just not as worried about it as other people. I played the game. I really enjoyed my time with the game. I'm hoping to put out a review at some point. Hopefully I put out the review before Legends ZA comes out, but I enjoyed my time with Scarlet and Violet to kind of like sum things up. And I understand that some people have some graphical issues and stuff like that. That's not really something that's going to like factor into my opinion on the game. I've noticed that people have different things that affect them when playing video games and stuff like that. And it almost seems like, yeah, Pokemon is held to a higher standard, and that kind of started with Sword and Shield, which I think has been a little bit unfair with the whole, like, zoomed in on a tree and then comparing it to, what was it, a Nintendo 64 tree or something, and people were saying, like, oh, it doesn't look good, or people were saying, like, oh, this looks like a PlayStation 2 game. I've never played the PlayStation 2. I don't have one of those, but, I know someone was like, have you actually played a PlayStation 2 game? And then they were saying, like, this does look better than a PlayStation 2 game. Because, some people are being unfair. I think they're being hyperbolic, but, I'm taking you at face value. And if you're trying to have, like, a serious conversation about a video game, or really anything, maybe don't be hyperbolic, because sometimes it makes things look kind of bad. So, yeah, the people had some graphical issues, slowdowns or like frame rate issues, and the art style, and I guess holding it to a higher standard because it is Pokemon. They make a lot of money. And was there anything else that people had with? I don't think there was anything else that people had issues with Scarlet and Violet. Maybe some of these issues like kind of just like getting more specific into those issues, but that's really what some of the issues that people had. So I'm just going to be like going through those and kind of discussing whether or not those are valid. And I guess it doesn't really matter, because I guess your opinion is your opinion, but just kind of like my perspective versus the perspective of some of the other people. I've also seen like someone saying like, oh, they didn't like the game and they gave the game to like their girlfriend or something, but they had only played like a few minutes of the game. I see some people saying like, oh yeah, Switch 2 might be a chance for me to go back to Scarlet and Violet. And my whole thing is just kind of like, what happened in your experience for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? What happened in your experience for you to just like drop the game? Because I understand that people have their own standards and stuff like that, but there are a lot worse games out there that people play, like willingly play. People grew up playing like some of these older games and stuff like that. If you go back to some of these older games, they don't look that good, but yet people will go back to those and play those today, you know. So my whole thing is kind of like, what was the breaking point for some of these people? Because I don't see it. I played Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I think I beat it in 8 days, which is the same that I did with Legends Arceus, or Arceus as they say now. And I don't know if I did that with Sword and Shield, but I've liked the recent Pokemon games, so I beat both of those pretty fast. Enjoyed the story and the characters and everything, so I beat those pretty fast. I do think that people online especially just kind of like have some weird standards. So as far as my experience goes with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I'm going to talk about the base game first. I played online. You can play within the same world as your friends. I played online in the same world as my friends, and I experienced a crash when I tried to battle an NPC character, and I guess it just kind of like kicked us all out. Now, that was the experience I had, but that's really about it. I also don't think multiplayer is really like a requirement. In that sort of case, I don't think it would crash in like a battle or like a battle with another player. Like if you're doing like a more competitive sort of battle. If you're doing something like that, I don't think it'll crash. But that was where I experienced the crash, when we were within the same world. Might have lost a little bit of data, save data or something. I'm not too sure. I think you have to save before you go online, so I probably didn't lose anything besides like getting into that battle. So it's not really a big deal, but I'm sure people will make that a big deal. It's like, you had a crash in your game made by Game Freak Nintendo. You had a crash in your game. That's horrible. It's just kind of like people online are just like overly harsh that I've noticed. And people are like really down on Pokemon fans and stuff like that. I do think that some people have some issues. Like sometimes there's like some slowdowns, I guess. I guess when you're on Miraidon or Koraidon or something, and some people might talk about that. I don't know. I never had a problem with that. I still don't have a problem with that. If a future game had something like that where it's like jumping, maybe it takes a few seconds or something, I don't care. I really don't care. I think people just kind of like push things a little too far online and everything like that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I want to talk about the base game and the DLC separately, just because they are two different experiences. And yeah, I'll leave it at that before I go to the DLC. But as far as the complaints, I've seen people like cursing about the game, so they're calling it let's say they're calling it poop. They're just calling it horrible. They're calling it terrible. They're calling it a buggy mess. They're calling it unplayable. They're calling it all these sorts of things. And my whole thing is just kind of like, what game were you playing? Because, as I said, I played Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I beat it in 8 days. I did experience the one crash, but other than that, didn't really have any problems with the game. Thought the game was great. Loved the characters. The story was something different for Pokemon. They're starting to get more... I think they're starting to get a little bit more different with the stories as time goes on. Things are different with Black and White. I would say that Legends Arceus is also a game that's different. Scarlet and Violet, Sun and Moon. I don't know about X and Y as much, but those games starting to be a little bit different in the storytelling, starting to introduce different elements and everything like that. So definitely really enjoyed the game, and then the DLC kind of having a story continue from part 1 to part 2. That was also really fun. So I enjoyed that. So my whole thing is just kind of like, are these people being like, are they exaggerating, or are they actually serious? Because that I think the distinction needs to be made, and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying they are being hyperbolic, they're exaggerating, because I played it. I played the game, I had a great time, I told you the issues that I had with the game, and then that was it. But like, some people are just kind of like acting like it's unplayable. It's not unplayable. You know, you are lying. That is a lie. Unless, I do know that some of the issues seemed a little random. So not everyone was having the same issue with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So that could be part of it. Maybe you were experiencing a different issue that I did not experience. But yeah, I'm gonna bring up something else. I've noticed people kind of being like, well, maybe you didn't have that issue in your game. Or like, another thing I've noticed is like people kind of like being down on Pokemon fans and like looking down on them. I don't like that. I don't think that's cool. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't know why people are doing that, but it's kind of like, they'll tell Pokemon fans like, you deserve better. They shouldn't do this. Or they'll kind of like insult people that like Pokemon and be like, they just eat it up. They eat up whatever Game Freak puts out. So I experienced a crash. I'm gonna keep saying that. I know people might have experienced other issues and stuff like that, but I do think that having like a few issues in a game doesn't really make it bad per se. And a lot of people are acting like it's a bad game, and that's it doesn't make sense to me, you know. You gotta make it obvious if you're being like exaggerating or you're being serious. When you say it's like bad, it's terrible, you're calling it poop, you know, unplayable, it doesn't really make sense to me. And I feel like we're gonna see some people, when they get Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on the Nintendo Switch 2, the graphics look better. I've watched the footage, it runs smoother and everything. People are going to suddenly be like, oh, I love this game. Oh, this is great. Oh, Pokemon, this is so good. And another thing I've noticed is like people complaining about Scarlet and Violet. Or like some people, I feel like some people, this isn't everyone, but I've noticed this. Some people will have a conversation about Scarlet and Violet, and someone's talking about the game negatively, so they're like, oh, it's bad? Oh man, I was excited to play a new Pokemon game. I might wait. And then someone will be like, I like later on they'll be like, oh, I played it. I played Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and it was surprisingly good. So you have people doing things like that. They're not even formulating their own opinions. They're listening to other people. Not everyone feels negatively about Scarlet and Violet. And I do think it's interesting that people, like, when you stop listening to other people and you actually play the game for yourself, you're like, oh, I actually liked it. And this is on the Nintendo Switch 1. This isn't on the Nintendo Switch 2. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That people are like suddenly enjoying the game. Oh, I played it. I did it. I played it. I actually picked up my controller. I didn't just listen to random YouTubers or random reviews by game companies and stuff like that. I don't really watch the reviews, but a channel I used to watch that does reviews and stuff like that. They had a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet review that was like really harsh. And the person that reviewed it, they liked Pokemon supposedly, and it was just like overly negative. Kind of like the internet comments like that I brought up. It's just like overly negative, you know. I can understand having some issues with some things, but just kind of like, I feel like Pokemon is being treated in a way that's not, it's not necessarily normal. Just like overly negative. Like, I can talk about a game, say I had some issues, and still say it's like a great game. And I just think that the internet, like, it's not just Pokemon, but, you know, Pokemon's the topic of focus here. But a lot of things, just people online, just like too harsh and stuff like that. And then I talked to some people. Granted, this is another Pokemon fan. I don't think that really matters. You know, like, not every Pokemon fan is going to be positive. Not every Pokemon fan is going to be negative. They also enjoyed the game, and they don't care what people online think. So I think that it's good to talk to people in person about things, because like sometimes information spreads online on the internet and people just kind of like go with it, you know, like Oh, I didn't play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but yeah, I heard it sucks, you know. So just kind of like just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. You know, sometimes it's good to talk to people in person. I've also noticed just kind of like people in person aren't always, you know, people online and people in person are different. Like I remember, I think it was the Scarlet and Violet launch. I saw this girl going to GameStop and she had like a Pikachu backpack. She looked excited to get her game and everything. People like Pokemon. You know, whether or not the internet is upset over like a tree, like a zoomed in tree, I saw that like someone had an issue. I think it was in Sword and Shield, maybe, or it could have been Scarlet and Violet, where their player model was like elongated or something. I never had that issue, but like you see pictures like that being spread around, and people just believe that the game is like that. You can take 4 screenshots of when your game was having an issue. That doesn't mean your game is always like that. But that screenshot lives on online and people just kind of like take it and run with it. So like, oh, I was thinking about getting Scarlet and Violet, but I saw that screenshot and, you know, I'm assuming the whole game's like that. So, you know, stuff like that. I think I've covered that. Kind of like some of the issues that people have had with the game being too serious. I've kind of brought up some of the things that people have said, just being like overly harsh. It's not cool. I don't appreciate it. I'm sure. I'm sure like even game companies might be like, you know, this might be too much. You know, maybe they're going too far. As far as the art style goes for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and this is something I wanted to talk about in my review, but too late now. The people in the game look kind of realistic. I watched the video recently on, I don't know if it was like a leak or something that Game Freak had, or the Pokemon Company had, and I don't know if this is either the assumption in the video or some sort of documents had talked about it, but like, I noticed it when I played the game, but they're talking about like how Game Freak went for more of a realism in Scarlet and Violet, and you can see that in some of the trainers. They kind of look like real people a little bit. I don't like it. I like the Ken Sugimori art style, or whatever his art style has evolved into. I prefer that, but not all the characters kind of look like that, which is odd. So as far as the art style goes, that's all I have to say on that. Again, people being overly harsh, I don't know, but that's all I have to say on the art style being too serious, graphical issues, slowdowns. I also noticed, I just watched this review, or performance review or something, for Scarlet and Violet on the Nintendo Switch 2. Someone got to play it early, they put out a video on it, and they were saying like, you know, like while the game does look better, the original game was fine to them. Well-respected person in the Pokemon community, probably one of the biggest Pokemon fans out there. I just find that kind of interesting, you know, like, if you won't take it from me, like a smaller channel, smaller creator, take it from someone who has a bigger channel, who's like covering all the Pokemon news and everything. They said the game was fine. I also thought the game was fine, but, you know, maybe that'll help my argument a little bit, I don't know. As far as issues with the game, I think the DLC is probably one that I will say was a little bit more serious when I would get into battles. Some battles, only some. There was like a weird like slowdown. It was like it was slow down a lot in the battles. I think either like one or two or three battles with random trainers. I'm sure they fixed that by now. Obviously, I've already beaten the DLC. Really enjoyed it, but as far as like issues and stuff like that, that's about it. I want to talk about frame rate, but in a sense of, I see a lot of people complaining about like frame rate, not just in like Pokemon, but like games in general. I watch a show where they talk about games and stuff like that. They talk about like new games, and they'll be like, oh, it's under 60 frames or something, like a new game. They'll be like, oh, it's under 60 frames, or it's under 30 frames. I guess 30 is like a benchmark for some games, and 60 is also a benchmark for some games. That's considered good, I guess. And they'll be like, oh, it's under 60, I don't know, it looks kind of strange or something like that. And it's like, I look at the game and it looks completely normal to me. So I think that and I try not to get too much into like the frame rate topic, because I feel like people that talk about frames all day, like something's up. Like I feel like people that talk about frames, they find a reason to be like unhappy about something, because it's just kind of like, it seems like if you get deeper into the frame thing, if you get deeper into like looking at frames and stuff like that, how many frames is this game running at? People are just like, oh, I can't play this game. I've heard people be like, oh, it makes me sick. I've had video games make me sick, but it's like the motion from the game. I've never been like, man, this game, like, and I've never played a game that's like running horribly, but also, like I said, some of these people, they talk negatively about a game that looks, supposedly it runs badly to them, or not as good as it could. Looks completely fine to me. It looks like a normal game. So, you know, I say don't get too deep into the frame rate topic. So that's really about it. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have a patch that is out on the Nintendo Switch 2. I've seen some people being positive about how the game looks now and how the game runs. Some people are going back to the game now. I noticed that the game is high up in the Nintendo Switch eShop. I just find it interesting. I really do. I find it interesting that, as far as I've noticed with my copy, I had one crash. Nothing else happened in the game to make me want to stop playing it. So let's say this. You don't like the graphics. What's wrong with the graphics to the point where you can't play the game? What is preventing you from playing the game? The game slows down in some places for some people, I suppose. What about that is preventing you from playing the game? So if a game isn't running well, let's say for like 5 seconds, 10 seconds or something, that's a note for you to like, I gotta stop, I can't play this, I gotta play something else. You know, I just feel like if you're finding like these small reasons, like, oh, I don't like the art style, you're finding these small reasons to not play the game, you're probably not really a Pokemon fan in the first place. Or you see that, oh, Pokemon looks nice on the Nintendo Switch 2, you know, I might have to pick that up. That person is not a Pokemon fan. I will tell you that. If a person's just kind of like, oh, it looks better now, I'll pick it up. That person's not a Pokemon fan. In my opinion. From my perspective. You can be a fan of anything you want. You know, that's just kind of like my perspective. So if you've played Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, what sort of performance issues have you had with the game? If you've had any, what issues do you have with the game? How do you feel like the game could improve? If you've looked up footage of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet running on Nintendo Switch 2, does that interest you in the game more? Anyways, that's it for me. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you like my content and want to see more, be sure to subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and like me on Facebook. The links are below. I'm SirMel11. See you next time, and peace out.